Commander Vorex Thul stood at the observation deck of the Imperial warship Eternal Dominance, watching as another planetary system joined the Galactic Empire. His four upper arms were clasped behind his back, while his two lower appendages rested on the hilt of his ceremonial blade. Not that the blade was merely for show. No, the notches on its handle, 57 to be precise, each represented a high-ranking opponent who had challenged him and subsequently lost their life. Commander, came the voice of Lieutenant Mira Zax, interrupting his moment of self-admiration. The conquest of Sector 39B is complete. Only minimal resistance encountered. Vorex didn't turn. Why bother? Underlings deserved only partial attention. Any casualties on our side? 3 drones damaged during the orbital bombardment. Nothing that can't be fixed within a rotation cycle. Boring, Vorex muttered, finally turning his massive frame toward his subordinate. His crimson exoskeleton gleamed under the artificial lights, polished to perfection as befitting his status. Is there nothing in this galaxy that can provide a decent challenge anymore? We have conquered 87 sentient species in the last solar revolution. Not one of them lasted more than 2 standard cycles against our forces. Lieutenant Zax shifted uncomfortably. Her green scales seemed to pale slightly under his gaze. Perhaps that's good news, Commander? The Empire grows stronger with each victory. Victory without struggle is like food without taste, Vorex said, his mandibles clicking in annoyance. I haven't drawn my actual combat blade in 7 revolutions. 7. Do you know what that does to a warrior's spirit? It withers, Lieutenant. It becomes soft and flabby like the underbelly of a Gorthan slug. Yes, Commander, Zax replied audibly, though Vorex could sense her disinterest. Of course she wouldn't understand. How could she? Lieutenant Zax was a tactical officer, not a warrior. Vorex moved to the central holo display, his towering 3-meter frame casting a shadow over the galactic map. With a flick of his upper right claw, he zoomed into the next target area. What's this unmarked system here? He asked, pointing to a small solar system on the outer rim of the Empire's expansion zone. Zax consulted her data pad. System XJ-271. Unremarkable. 8 planets, only 1 harboring life. Initial scans show a developing civilization. Technology level, mid-stage atomic era. No significant space travel capabilities. Designated as minor acquisition by Imperial scouts. Vorex grunted. Another boring conquest. Send in the standard invasion fleet. I will remain here and... Commander, interrupted Admiral Krell, entering the observation deck with his characteristic heavy footfalls. The old warrior's battle-scarred exoskeleton and missing left eye gave him an air of earned respect that Vorex secretly envied. We have received unusual reports about System XJ-271. Now this was interesting. Unusual reports were rare in the methodical expansion of the Empire. What kind of reports? Vorex asked, his boredom momentarily forgotten. Admiral Krell's single eye narrowed. The planet is called Earth by its inhabitants. Species call themselves humans. The initial scout ship we sent 3 lunar cycles ago has gone silent. Vorex laughed, the sound rumbling from deep in his thorax. A scout ship? Lost to primitives with atomic technology? Please tell me you are attempting humor, Admiral. I wish I were, Krell responded, not a hint of amusement in his gravelly voice. We sent a follow-up reconnaissance drone. It transmitted for approximately 7 minutes before we lost contact. Now Vorex was genuinely curious. Show me the footage. Admiral Krell nodded to Lieutenant Zax, who quickly pulled up the drone's final transmission on the holo display. The 3 officers watched in silence as the drone approached the blue-green planet from orbit. The footage showed a lush world with vast oceans and continental landmasses. As the drone descended through the atmosphere, it captured images of sprawling cities, transportation networks, and energy production facilities, all fairly standard for a developing civilization. Fast forward to the final minutes, Krell instructed. The footage jumped ahead to show the drone hovering above what appeared to be a military installation. Humans in uniform were pointing at the drone, their facial expressions unreadable to Vorex, who had never bothered to study primitive species' emotional displays. "They have spotted it," Vorex observed unnecessarily. "But these weapons look primitive. There's no way they could." On screen, one of the humans raised what looked like a handheld device. There was a brief flash, and the footage abruptly ended. Silence filled the observation deck. "That's impossible," Vorex finally said. A handheld weapon taking down an Imperial drone with military-grade shielding? Admiral Krell's expression remained grim. "The Science Division has analyzed what little data we have. They believe these humans may have developed technology along unconventional lines." Meaning? Meaning they don't follow the standard technological development pattern of other species we have encountered. They appear to excel in certain areas while remaining primitive in others. Vorex felt something he hadn't experienced in a very long time, genuine excitement. "You are saying they might actually pose a challenge?" "I'm saying we should approach with caution," Krell replied diplomatically. "The Emperor has taken a personal interest in this situation. He wants you to lead the invasion force." Vorex's mandibles spread in what passed for a smile among his species. "Finally, some real action. Prepare my battle cruiser. I will take a small elite force rather than the standard invasion fleet." "Commander," Krell warned, "this is not a gladiatorial match. This is still an Imperial conquest. We follow protocols." Vorex waved a dismissive claw. Yes, protocols. We will bring the standard invasion fleet. But I want to be on the front lines. I want to meet these humans myself." "As you wish, Commander," Krell said with a slight bow, though Vorex could sense his disapproval. After the Admiral departed, Lieutenant Zax approached cautiously. "Commander, if I may, the records show these humans have an unusual propensity for violence against each other. Their history is filled with continuous warfare." "All the better," Vorex replied, his excitement growing. "A species that has honed its combat skills through internal conflict often provides the most entertaining resistance." "That's not what I meant," Zax persisted. "The psychological profile suggests they are unpredictable. They don't surrender when defeat is certain. They continue fighting despite overwhelming odds." Vorex turned to face his lieutenant, all four of his eyes focusing on her. "Are you suggesting that I, Commander Vorex Thul, undefeated champion of the Imperial forces, he should be concerned about facing primitives who haven't even achieved proper space travel?" Zax immediately backtracked. "No, Commander. Of course not. I merely thought the information relevant to our tactical approach. The only tactical approach I need is my blade against their strongest warrior," Vorex declared. "That is how you truly conquer a species, by defeating their champion in front of their people. It breaks their spirit far more effectively than any orbital bombardment." "Yes, Commander," Zax replied, knowing better than to argue further. Over the next several days, Vorex immersed himself in what little information the Empire had gathered about humans. He studied their physical capabilities, disappointingly weak compared to his own species. Their endurance seemed somewhat impressive, but nothing that concerned him. Their weapons technology was primitive, though that strange handheld device from the drone footage remained unexplained. The invasion fleet assembled, 20 warships, each carrying hundreds of assault craft and thousands of Imperial troops. Overkill for a single planet of primitives, but protocol demanded overwhelming force. As the fleet prepared to enter hyperspace for the short journey to Earth, Vorex found himself on the bridge of his personal battlecruiser, Glorious Victory. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from the human planet." Vorex's antenna twitched in surprise. "They are contacting us? How? Our communication frequencies should be unknown to them." "Unknown, sir? But the transmission is definitely coming from Earth, and it's directed specifically at our fleet." "Put it through," Vorex ordered, his curiosity piqued. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a human male. The creature was wearing some sort of uniform and had decorations that Vorex assumed denoted rank or achievements. "Attention, alien fleet," the human said in a calm, measured voice. "This is General Thomas Barrett of the United Earth Defense Force. We have detected your approach and understand your intentions. Before you commit to a course of action, we invite you to send a representative to discuss terms." Vorax couldn't help but laugh, the sound echoing around the bridge. "They want to discuss terms? The audacity of these creatures. Should I terminate the transmission, Commander?" the communications officer asked. No, Vorax replied, still amused. "Let's hear what these primitives have to say." He stepped forward so the human could see him clearly. "This is Commander Vorax Thul of the Galactic Imperial Forces. There are no terms to discuss. Your planet will be incorporated into the Empire. Resistance will result in your extinction." The human General Barrett didn't show any sign of fear or intimidation. In fact, if Vorax was interpreting the alien facial expression correctly, the human appeared almost bored. "Commander Thul," Barrett replied evenly, "we understand your position. However, we believe there's been a misunderstanding about Earth's capabilities. We'd prefer to avoid unnecessary conflict. If you are as confident as you appear, perhaps you'd be willing to accept a demonstration?" Vorax's interest was definitely piqued now. "What kind of demonstration?" "A controlled confrontation. Your best warrior against ours. A test of strength and skill that doesn't risk either of our forces unnecessarily." Now this was speaking Vorax's language. A chance to face their champion personally? It was exactly what he'd been hoping for. "And if my warrior wins?" Vorax asked, already knowing he would be that warrior. "Then we will discuss surrender terms," Barrett replied. "And if our warrior wins, you withdraw your fleet and recognize Earth as sovereign territory off-limits to the Empire." Vorax couldn't contain his amusement. "You actually believe your champion could defeat an Imperial warrior? Our weakest soldier could conquer your entire planet single-handedly." Barrett's expression remained neutral. "Then you have nothing to lose, Commander." Vorax considered for a moment. This wasn't standard protocol, but the Emperor had given him considerable latitude in handling this unusual situation. And the prospect of personal combat was too tempting to resist. "Very well," Vorax declared. "I accept your challenge. I, personally, will face your champion." For the first time, a slight smile appeared on Barrett's face. "Excellent. We will transmit coordinates for a neutral location. You may bring a small security detail, as will we. We will expect you in 12 hours. The transmission ended, leaving Vorax standing on the bridge, already imagining his glorious victory. Admiral Krell, who had been observing silently, stepped forward. "Commander, this is highly irregular. The protocols for first contact and conquest don't include personal combat with native species." "The Emperor gave me discretion in this matter," Vorax replied dismissively. "And what better way to demonstrate our superiority? When I defeat their champion, they will surrender without a fight. We will save resources and time." "And if you lose?" Krell asked pointedly. Vorax turned all four of his eyes toward the Admiral, his mandibles clicking in irritation. "I haven't lost a combat in 300 revolutions, Admiral. I'm not about to start losing to a primitive species that still burns fossil fuels." Krell didn't argue further, but his disapproval was obvious. 12 hours later, Vorax's personal shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere toward the coordinates provided by the humans. He had brought Lieutenant Zax and a squad of 10 elite guards, more than enough security for this brief excursion. The landing site was a flat, open area surrounded by mountains, a perfect location for combat, with no civilians or structures nearby. As the shuttle touched down, Vorax could see a small group of humans waiting several hundred meters away, standing beside their own transport vehicles. Remember, Vorax instructed his guards as the shuttle's ramp lowered, "No matter what happens, no one interferes in the combat. This is between me and their champion." The Earth air hit his sensory organs as he stepped onto the planet's surface, oxygen-rich, slightly humid, entirely breathable without assistance. Vorax took a moment to adjust to the gravity, which was marginally stronger than Imperial Standard. Nothing that would affect his performance significantly. The human delegation approached, led by General Barrett. Beside him walked a figure that Vorax assumed must be their champion, though he was momentarily confused by the sight. The human was smaller than Barrett, with none of the physical bulk Vorax had expected from a warrior. This human had long hair tied back, and was wearing simple black clothing rather than armor or a military uniform. Commander Thol, Barrett greeted him formally. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Vorax towered over the humans, his 3-meter frame making them look like children in comparison. "Let's not waste time with pleasantries, General. Present your champion so we can proceed." Barrett gestured to the smaller human beside him. "This is Alexis Yuri, Earth's representative for this contest." Vorax stared at the human in disbelief, then let out a booming laugh that echoed off the surrounding mountains. "This is your champion? This small creature? Is this some kind of joke?" The human Alexis looked up at him with an expression that Vorax couldn't quite interpret. Was it amusement? "Is there a problem, Commander?" Barrett asked innocently. "I expected your strongest warrior," Vorax replied, still chuckling. "Not whatever this is." Alexis spoke for the first time, her voice surprisingly steady. "I am exactly what you asked for, Commander Thol, Earth's representative in this contest." Vorax turned to Lieutenant Zax. "Scan this creature. There must be some trick here." Zax ran a quick scan with her handheld device. "Readings show standard human biology, Commander. No enhancements, no hidden weapons, no unusual energy signatures." Vorax turned back to the humans, his amusement fading into irritation. "If this is your idea of a strategy, sending a weak opponent to seek mercy, it won't work. I will still claim victory, and your planet will still become part of the Empire." "No tricks, Commander," Barrett assured him. "Alexis is our chosen representative. The terms remain as discussed. If you win, we will discuss surrender. If Alexis wins, you withdraw your fleet." Vorex's mandibles clicked in annoyance. This wasn't the glorious combat he'd been anticipating. Defeating this small human would bring him no honor. But he was committed now. "Fine," he growled. "Let's proceed with this farce." The two groups moved to the center of the flat area, forming a rough circle around Vorax and Alexis. The human appeared completely calm, stretching her limbs casually as if preparing for a light exercise session rather than combat with the Empire's greatest warrior. "The rules are simple," Barrett announced. "Combat continues until one participant surrenders or is unable to continue. No outside interference. No weapons except those you were born with." Vorax removed his ceremonial blade and handed it to Lieutenant Zax. He wouldn't need it anyway. His natural weaponry, razor-sharp claws, powerful limbs, armored exoskeleton would be more than sufficient. "Are both participants ready?" Barrett asked. Alexis nodded silently. Vorax gave a curt affirmative gesture. "Then begin," Barrett declared, stepping back to join the observers. Vorax took a combat stance, his forearms raised in the traditional posture of an Imperial warrior. Alexis simply stood there, hands at her sides, watching him. "I will try not to kill you too quickly," Vorax said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Your people should have time to witness their champion's defeat." Alexis tilted her head slightly. "Are you going to talk all day, or are we going to do this?" The casual disrespect ignited Vorax's temper. With a roar, he lunged forward, his upper right arm swinging in a powerful arc aimed directly at the human's head, a blow that should incapacitate without killing. What happened next would forever change Commander Vorax Thol's understanding of the universe. Though Vorax's mighty blow hit nothing but air, the human had moved impossibly fast, sidestepping his attack with such fluid grace that for a moment Vorax thought he might have hallucinated her presence entirely. But no, there she was, standing calmly 2 meters to his left, hands still relaxed at her sides. "Interesting approach," Alexis commented, her tone casual, as if discussing the weather. "Very direct, Vorex's compound eyes blinked in confusion. No creature had ever evaded his strike before. It must have been luck. Pure, simple luck. Stand still and face me properly, he snarled, mandibles clicking in agitation. Alexis raised an eyebrow. Why would I do that? This time, Vorex coordinated all four of his arms in a complex attack pattern that had overwhelmed countless opponents across 3 galaxies. His limbs moved in perfect harmony, creating an inescapable net of striking surfaces aimed at multiple points on the human's body. Again, Alexis moved. But this time Vorex saw it, or at least he caught a glimpse of her motion. She didn't just evade, she flowed around his attacks like water around stones, never where his claws expected her to be, always just beyond reach. The commander stumbled forward, thrown off balance by the force of his own assault, meeting no resistance. He recovered quickly, whirling around to face the human, who now stood behind him. "What trickery is this?" he demanded, genuine confusion in his voice. Alexis shrugged. "No tricks, just movement." Lieutenant Zax was staring open-mouthed at the scene, her data pad frantically recording everything. "Commander," she called out, "our sensors are having difficulty tracking the human's motion patterns. There appears to be some anomaly in the readings." Silence. Vorex roared. He didn't need technology to tell him what was happening. This human was faster than any opponent he had faced before. But speed alone wouldn't save her. Changing tactics, Vorex planted his feet firmly and waited, watching the human carefully. When she made no move to attack, he spoke again. "You cannot win by merely avoiding me," he said. "Eventually you must strike." "Must I?" Alexis replied, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "It seems to me you are getting pretty frustrated just with the avoiding part." She was right, and that realization only fueled Vorex's growing anger. With a bellow that echoed off the surrounding mountains, he charged forward, abandoning technique for raw power and speed. This time, when Alexis moved, something else happened. Instead of simply avoiding the attack, her hand shot out, making contact with Vorex's forearm. It was a light touch, barely perceptible, but suddenly Vorex found himself airborne. The world spun around him. Sky, ground, mountains blurred together until he crashed onto his back with bone-jarring force, sending up a cloud of dust from the impact. For several seconds, Vorex couldn't process what had happened. How had this small creature thrown his 300-kilogram body through the air? It defied every physical law he understood. Groaning, he pushed himself up to see Alexis standing a few meters away, still in that same relaxed posture, as if she hadn't moved at all. What was that? He gasped, his translator struggling to convey his shock. That, General Barrett called from the sidelines, was Aikido, one of Earth's many martial arts forms. Martial arts? Vorex repeated the unfamiliar term as he regained his footing. Combat systems, Barrett explained, clearly enjoying himself now. Humans have developed thousands of different fighting styles over our history. Alexis here is proficient in several dozen of them. Several dozen? Vorex couldn't fathom a species developing so many different ways to fight. The Imperial combat system was standardized across the entire Empire, one perfect method, scientifically optimized for efficiency. "Ready to continue?" Alexis asked, bouncing slightly on her toes. Vorex approached more cautiously this time. He circled the human, looking for weaknesses, telegraphing false attacks to gauge her reactions. She simply turned in place, keeping him in view, her eyes those strange single-lens eyes, watching him with unnerving focus. When he attacked again, it was with precision rather than power. His upper left arm darted forward in a feint, while his lower right aimed for her legs. Alexis jumped not away, but toward him, sailing over his lower strike while simultaneously grabbing his upper arm. Using his own momentum, she pulled, twisted, and suddenly Vorex was looking at the sky again, his arm locked in an agonizing position. "This one's called jiu-jitsu," Alexis explained conversationally, applying just enough pressure to cause pain without damage. "It's all about leverage. The wonderful thing about leverage is that it doesn't matter how strong you are if the angles are against you. With a desperate heave, Vorex broke free, scrambling away from the human. This was impossible. Inconceivable. He was Commander Vorex Thol, undefeated champion of the Imperial forces. He couldn't be losing to this tiny creature from a backwater planet. Lieutenant Zax, he barked. Analysis. Zax, still recording everything, responded promptly. The human appears to be using your own strength and momentum against you, Commander. Their techniques focus on redirection rather than direct opposition. That much is obvious, Vorex snapped. How do I counter it? Before Zax could respond, Alexis spoke up. You know, it's generally considered poor form to ask for advice during a duel. Her tone was light, almost teasing. But since you are new to this, I will give you a tip. Stop trying to overpower me. It won't work. The casual confidence, the complete lack of fear or respect, it ignited something primal in Vorex's warrior brain. With a roar that made even his own guards flinch, he abandoned all pretense of strategy and launched himself at the human, all 6 limbs extended, claws bared, mandibles wide. What followed was a blur of motion and pain. Vorex felt himself being redirected, deflected, and guided through the air in ways his body was never designed to move. Every attack he initiated resulted in him being thrown, locked, or pinned. The human's hands seemed to be everywhere at once, finding pressure points he didn't know existed, exploiting weaknesses in his exoskeleton's joint sections that even he wasn't aware of. After one particularly humiliating throw that left him face down in the dirt, Vorex heard General Barrett explaining to his confused guards. What you are witnessing is the difference between a warrior culture and a warfare culture. Your commander comes from a society that glorifies combat as a test of individual strength. Humans come from a planet where we have been trying to kill each other in increasingly creative ways for our entire history. We don't fight to prove ourselves, we fight to win. Vorex pushed himself up, his exoskeleton now covered in dust and cracked in several places. His breathing was labored, his limbs trembling from exertion and the accumulation of minor injuries. Alexis stood a few meters away, barely showing signs of effort beyond a slight elevation in her breathing rate. How? Vorex managed to ask between gasps. How is this possible? Alexis regarded him thoughtfully. You want the technical explanation or the philosophical one? Both, Vorex replied, using the brief respite to try and recover some of his strength. But technically, it's physics and biology, she said. Humans evolved on a high-gravity world with significant environmental pressures. We are weaker than many species in terms of raw strength, but we compensated with efficiency, endurance, and adaptability. These martial arts. She gestured to the space between them, are the result of thousands of years of humans figuring out how to fight larger, stronger opponents. She took a step forward, and Vorex couldn't help but tense. Philosophically, Alexis continued, it's because we never stopped challenging ourselves. Your empire conquers through overwhelming force. You expect to win, so when you encounter something unexpected, you don't adapt quickly enough. We have conquered 87 species, Vorex protested, his pride wounded even more than his body. The Imperial forces are the most powerful military in the galaxy. And yet Alexis replied, simply gesturing at his battered form. Vorex knew he should surrender. Any rational being would recognize defeat at this point. But 300 revolutions of victory after victory had made defeat unthinkable. With a surge of desperate energy, he lunged once more. This time, Alexis didn't redirect or evade. She met his charge head-on, stepping inside his guard. Her fist connected with a precise point on his thorax, a spot directly over a nerve cluster that Vorex hadn't even realized was vulnerable. The world went white with pain. Vorex's limbs seized, his nervous system overwhelmed by the sudden targeted trauma. He collapsed to the ground, completely paralyzed but fully conscious. Pressure point strike, Alexis explained to the horrified onlookers. He will recover in about 5 minutes. No permanent damage. Now, from his position on the ground, Vorex could see Lieutenant Zax rushing toward him, medical scanner in hand. Beyond her, Admiral Krell was watching with an expression that might have been concern or might have been calculation. It was hard to tell with the old warrior. "The contest is over," General Barrett announced formally. "Earth's champion is victorious. As agreed, the Imperial fleet will withdraw from Earth space, and our planet will be recognized as sovereign territory, off-limits to the Empire." "Wait," Admiral Krell stepped forward. "This was irregular from the start. One combat does not determine the fate of an Imperial conquest. We have thousands of troops and 20 warships. We could still take this planet by force." Barrett's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. "You could try, Admiral. But consider this, if one human can defeat your greatest warrior in hand-to-hand combat, what do you think our actual military might be capable of?" A chill ran through Vorex's immobilized form. It was a question he was suddenly afraid to know the answer to. "The drone," Lieutenant Zax said quietly, realization dawning on her face. "The handheld device that destroyed our military-grade drone, that wasn't even your advanced technology, was it?" "Standard issue equipment," Barrett confirmed with a slight nod. "Nothing special." Admiral Krell was silent for a long moment, his single eye darting between the fallen Vorex, the calm Alexis, and the resolute General Barrett. Finally, he spoke. "We will honor the agreement," he declared, much to Vorex's surprise. "The fleet will withdraw. I will personally inform the Emperor of this development." As feeling began to return to Vorex's limbs, Alexis knelt beside him. Up close, he could see the fine details of her face, the complexity of emotions in those alien eyes, the strange symmetry of her features. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "you fought well. You are strong and brave. But strength and bravery aren't enough against an opponent who has spent their entire evolutionary history fighting things stronger than themselves." Vorex managed to move his mandibles enough to speak. "What? What are you humans?" Alexis smiled, not a mocking smile, but something genuine and almost kind. "We are survivors, Commander. On our world, everything tried to kill us: predators, weather, disease, even the very ground beneath our feet with earthquakes and volcanoes. And when those threats weren't enough to keep us busy, we fought each other. For resources, for territory, or ideology. Sometimes just to see who was better at fighting." She stood up as Vorex regained enough control to sit. "Your empire expands outward, conquering whatever it finds," she continued. "Humans turn inward. We perfect ourselves through conflict. Every battle, every war, every duel, they are all just practice for the next challenge." Lieutenant Zax helped Vorex to his feet. His body ached in ways he hadn't experienced since his earliest training days. But it was his pride that had suffered the most serious wound. "Will you kill me now?" he asked, remembering the fate he had delivered to countless defeated opponents. Alexis looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Why would we do that?" "I am defeated. It is the warrior's way." Barrett stepped forward. "Not our way, Commander. Killing you would be wasteful. You are far more valuable alive." "Valuable? How?" "As a messenger," Barrett explained. "You will return to your empire and tell them about humans, about what happened here today. That information is worth far more than your death could ever be." As the Imperial Guards helped Vorex back to their shuttle, he found himself looking back at the small group of humans. They weren't celebrating their victory or mocking his defeat. They were simply watching, with those strange, calculating eyes that seemed to see more than they should. In that moment, Commander Vorex Thul, undefeated champion of the Imperial forces, understood something profound. The Empire had never encountered a true threat before. They had conquered weaker species, yes, but they had never faced an opponent that could match them or worse, exceed them. Until now. "Lieutenant," he said quietly as the shuttle door closed, "make sure all recordings of this encounter are preserved, unedited." "Yes, Commander," Zax replied, surprised by the request. "May I ask why?" Vorex looked out the viewport as the shuttle lifted off, watching the diminishing figures of the humans below. "Because the Empire needs to know," he said simply. They need to understand what we have found here. This species, these humans, they are different. And if we are wise, we will leave them alone." Admiral Krell, who had been listening silently, nodded in agreement. "I have already sent word to the fleet. We are withdrawing to the outer system boundary." "And the Emperor?" Vorax asked. "What will you tell him?" Krell's single eye fixed on Vorax with unexpected intensity. "The truth. That we encountered a species that could destroy us if provoked. That the wisest course of action is to establish diplomatic relations rather than attempting conquest." "He won't like that," Vorax noted. "No," Krell agreed, "but he will like extinction even less." As the shuttle rejoined the fleet and preparations began for the long journey home, Vorax found himself standing once more at an observation window, staring down at the blue-green planet below. It looked so harmless from orbit, just another world among countless others. But now he knew better. Now he understood what those initial scout reports had been trying to warn them about. "Lieutenant Zax," he said, not turning from the viewport. "Yes, Commander." "I want all available information on human culture, history, and society loaded into my personal database." Zax hesitated. "Sir? May I ask why?" Vorax finally turned, meeting her confused gaze with all four of his eyes. "Because I intend to understand them, and because I never want to fight one again." In the centuries that followed, the legend of Commander Vorax Thul grew throughout the Empire, but not for the reasons he had once hoped. He became known not as the greatest warrior, but as the wisest, the commander who recognized when not to fight, the strategist who turned a single defeat into the Empire's most valuable alliance. And in the grand meeting halls of the Imperial Palace, where battle trophies and conquest memorials lined the walls, there hung a simple black frame containing a handwritten note from Earth. Its message was short but profound. "The strongest warrior knows when strength alone is not enough." It was signed simply, "Alexis Yuri, human."